Wild bunch. I don't know if you guys have seen this. We are stepping back in time today. I'm Cody.
I'm Anthony.
We're Big Beaver Comics. Go over to bigbeavercomics.com if you guys like comic books, action figures, all that. But today, we are starting the first in a series of movie reviews that we are calling Testosterone Fuel.
Yes.
Because I can still feel the testosterone brimming out of my nuts after watching The Wild Bunch.
Dude, me too. I'm seeping.
It was outstanding. I don't know how many of you out there in TV land or YouTube land have seen a lot of Sam Peckinpah movies, but to say this drunkard was a hell of a movie maker would be an understatement. Go look at the Wikipedia. The man was a drinker.
It does say he was a heavy drinker.
I think everybody back then was a drinker.
They looked like they were heavy drinkers back then.
So if you like guys' movies jacked up with a lot of people getting shot and testosterone pumping through your veins, and a lot of principled stoicism, because we did notice there was quite a bit of that.
When you think jacked up, do you mean like malnourished? Because that's the one thing I noticed about the movie. A lot of these Wild West, look really malnourished.
We also noticed that a lot of people wore a lot of layers.
Right.
Even out on the old dusty trail, there was a lot of real taint sweat that was building inside of these layers.
Yes.
But they looked good. They had a real formal look to them.
All our suits.
Everybody was buttoned up. We didn't see a lot of seams coming out or anything. So they had really good seamstresses back in the day.
Had to be, right? I'd imagine you jumping on and off your horse.
I think the thing I took away from a lot of the older movies that were a lot more centered around people struggling through what was inherently tough times, I think no matter what, was that we saw a lot of guys, again, that I would say had a lot of principled stoicism. They were strong in the face of a lot of adversity. The fact was that pretty much every time a new scene dawned, you were probably sure and shit fucking dead.
Yeah, I was going to die.
To make it out of things really drove you to the old whorehouse. You were happy about it. You got shit-faced pretty much at every opportunity.
Right. Well, we're talking about how tense the situations can be because they're all laughing, then you're getting drunk, and they're about to get shot. And then, they're all hungover, you're about to get shot again, you start drinking, and they're laughing. It must be a really stressful time.
I think it led to a lot of perseverance. I think that's probably what was the backbone of building society, was that people back then, because so we've got a bit of a dramatic representation, I imagine, of a life on somewhat of the outskirts. It was still a rebel bunch of guys.
You mean that wasn't a documentary?
I bet you it was probably somewhat of a documentary in the sense that that's probably what life was like if you chose to live a life like that. A lot of train robberies, a lot of tit for tat and take what you could and survive off what you had and go and, deal with a lot of adversity. And we enjoyed the fact that I think there was a lot of men being very principled. Their word meant a lot. Who they gave their allegiance to meant a lot. They saw themselves through a lot of really stressful, overbearing situations that would otherwise break a lot of people psychologically. It would break you. You wouldn't be able to then move on to but they just kind of stepped along like it was just, we hit these forks in the road. We find something that may be a little difficult. We see it through head on. Sure, Anthony might die in the process. I just take over the show then, and it's
boom.
Right. I finish you off, right, or finish you off, or
either or at the same time,
Right? Yeah, I fucking whatever.
You can't ride, right? You got missing my face holes.
There was a lot of horse riding. You needed to be able to be pretty adept at horse riding.
What have we noticed too? A lot of these scenes nowadays would not be able to be done with horses and a
couple horses fell in the drink.
Right, that blew up a bridge and the
fell
fell
in the Rio Grande. They did in the drink, right?
In the drink.
We also noticed that it was very easy to learn how to do things you'd never done before. There was a train thievery. And we learned how to conduct a train quite quickly. Not only that, but reverse a train down the track.
We've learned a new path.
Despite the really shoddy engineering, there wasn't any train derailments, despite the speeds that we picked up at.
That's very true.
You just assured me that this was some of the best engineering going, and that's
spot on.
So I guess he knew a little better than I did about the blueprints of these trains back in 1913.
Very integral.
Fictitious trains, nonetheless.
Those were fictitious. No, those are real. Hands down, those are real trains.
So this was a documentary.
This was. what I took from it was a documentary.
So this was actually, Sam Peckinpah was filming this as it was happening. He was a time-traveling drunk.
Yes.
Wasn't just your regular run-of-the-mill wino.
No, it's because you get to a certain point when you're so drunk, you're like, oh, I'm hallucinating, I'm visions.
This is what happens after you've pissed and shit yourself. You move into transitioning through time and space, and you take your video camera with you.
Well, you're reaching an enlightened state, right?
I mean, this actually was nominated for quite a bit of awards because of its like transitions and its quick pacing and then slow motion and the way, obviously, the graphic violence was something that you didn't see a lot of in 1969.
No, the graphic violence and the nudity, I was surprised seeing.
There was a lot of knockers.
A lot of knockers in there.
There wasn't any dongs, though.
Right, there could have been
Again,
a lot
everybody
more
was
dog
very well
hanging.
seamed together. The pants didn't seem to just get, despite any kind of shootouts or fistfights, or nobody lost their pantaloons. Everybody was well panted.
That's
Is that a
very
word?
true.
It's a word now.
Well panted.
Well panted.
I would like to bring
Even
up
when they fell in the Rio Grande.
That's very true. Well, I did say he lost his boots falling in the Rio Grande.
They stole some boots. Everybody got stripped down after they got murked, too. That happened
Right.
a lot.
I did notice that. As soon as they're dead, let's grab their boots. Let's see what kind of change they have on them. Grab their jacket.
Do you think that leads to being haunted quite a bit when you're wearing a dead man's underwear?
Yes,
I would
absolutely.
imagine you get a lot of like specters that follow you.
You
through.
do, they're like on your ring, and a specter ring, and they're like fogging you, haunting you, they're going crazy, and you just want to shoot everybody because you're hearing voices all the time.
So you had machine guns, easy learning again. Picked up the first machine gun anybody had ever seen. Took Apache's crew out with that.
Yeah.
Died holding on to the machine gun, our boy Pike did.
He did, yeah.
Thornton, Warren Oates was pretty much the only guy that made it through this. William Holden, dead. Ernest Borgnine, dead.
No, Warren Oates died.
Huh?
Warren Oates died.
No, he didn't. Warren Oates lived till the end. Remember, the old dude offered him to come along and come back to the...
That's Thornton.
That's a Warren Oates. Oh, no, Warren Oates was in the gang.
Yeah,
Right, you're right.
No, because at first we thought he was Warren Oates, and then we looked it up, and no, he turned out to be the
My
guy
mistake.
again.
Right. Let's get you something to comment about down
It
in the
does.
comments,
Tell them how
right?
stupid we are.
Well, we already knew that, though.
I know.
Well, I'm surprised. This camera's probably not even rolling. We're just here talking to a wall.
Half the time I don't even press record, I take a picture instead.
Right, but it's a good picture. I try to vogue for it.
Right, I wanted to bring up the sanitary conditions when they're shooting the alcohol and then they're having a little jacuzzi tub in the wine.
That's probably the only thing that's going to like inoculate a lot of the bacteria was the alcohol. Otherwise,
Right. No, that's very true.
get a lot of sepsis from banging randos back in the day, I would imagine.
Right, they visit a lot of whorehouses. Well, I would imagine.
I mean, not to say we don't. We're not right. We still
we're in one right now.
We still peruse those establishments frequently, and we'd like to say thank you. We appreciate the.
We got to keep them open.
We've got to do something for the community,
Local
right?
businesses, we like to support them.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I've noticed fuses also. They burn quite slow.
Yeah.
The threat of a fuse burning, it seems like an interesting sort of thing, and then when you realize how slow it matriculates down the line.
3 hours later, he had like all the what was that? The wagon was teamed up with all the dynamite.
Well, yeah, when Apache's guys came for the munitions that they stole off the train, right? And he kind of threatened them with it, and then it burned about that far in a matter of a few minutes. And I thought, like, you'd have to get that started like a good 8 hours previous to this.
Right, you can go back, have a bath, bang some whores, have a good shootout, maybe rob a train, come back, and you still got an hour and a half to spare.
Well, William Holden had that issue there earlier on when him and Thornton were a team, a tandem, that he was getting a little too lighting the loafers when he was out there at the old whorehouses drinking.
Yes.
And that's what ended up breaking the squad up and putting William Holden on one end of the law and well, I guess Thornton wasn't the law, but he was representing the train company, which was kind of a subsidiary of the law, because I would imagine everything in the Wild West, 1913 Wild West, around the Mexican border, I would imagine it was all kind of just it was a word. We said we were the law, but there's no real law because they're all dead.
Because they kind of really did just glaze over the backstory of
I'm a little glazed over, as a matter of fact. I've been celebrating Sam Peckinpah since we watched this yesterday.
That's right. How Thornton was in the jail for a bit, and they didn't really tell how he broke up out of the band until that horror house scene, where he gets shot in the leg. And he ended up going a different way as Buddy ran.
And we don't think you're horrible. We're not using that as a derogatory term. We were ladies of the night.
Ladies of the night. I'm just saying.
It doesn't
they
roll
use
off
that term.
It doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
Ladies of the night.
Right, or the
I like
day.
that.
It really depends if you're trying to get your rocks off.
That's very true.
Right, I would imagine they
Day walker,
work
night walker.
shifts, right? You can't just be in there working 24 hours a day, just getting your ass blown out just constantly.
Well, no,
I would imagine you need a little decompression time. You probably need a couple.
hit that pipe time,
You
right?
need a couple peck and paws to get yourself reinvigorated to go back to work. And
That's what we're gonna start calling drink now. I need some peck and paws right now.
he didn't make it past the age of 59, so I don't know if we really want to be diving into that head first, but it's a lifestyle I'm willing to pick up on the weekends and,
YOLO.
and when the Lord's not looking. Yeah, YOLO.
Because back then you lived in a YOLO life because like hell I could go at any time.
Well, it seemed like pretty much any scene, people were on the absolute verge of their funeral. So,
Yes.
but people, like I said, were still very principled. They had a lot of principled characteristics. Their word was worth a lot.
Yeah.
The acting was phenomenal. We did mention throughout. I'm sure you're not watching this by now because you're not drunk like Peck and Paw Pie. But we were saying that the acting was very staged acting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like guys were theatrical actors. There wasn't much like how we are just yammering the fuck on and you could care less what we have to say. And we just muddle a shit ton of stuff and
Right.
interweave our thoughts as they come to our mind like children.
Very much so.
These guys had very distinct, principled things they had to say, one phrase, and it encompassed exactly full paragraphs or full thought patterns.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to add in a bunch of extra conjecture in the conversation.
Right, like they did with Angel there. I gave them that ultimatum: either forget about her or come with us.
Well, no, that was about, I think it was, oh no, he was mad originally about his dad, who killed my dad.
Yes.
And it was Mapache killed your dad.
Mm.
He was very mad about that.
Yeah.
Then it was, where did the chick go?
His wife.
And then it was, the chick went with Mapache because she was getting a little sauced up.
Yeah.
And they told him to drop it. And he did in the instance. But then when they ran into her again, he blasted her right out of Mapache's lap.
Quick time.
Mapache didn't take it. Again, there was another good example of how frequent people were getting smoked around you.
Right.
That Mapache didn't miss a beat. He just kept eating dinner.
Right. She got shot, and then he's like, "Why'd you shoot at?
Why'd you shoot at me?
Right. I said, "I didn't. It was just for the girl." Then they started laughing. They're like, come have a drink
Ah,
now.
she's replaceable.
Right. Oh.
Bring me another wench. And then
Right. That's basically what it was.
right back to dinner, which I imagine was probably cooked iguana, because I didn't see a lot of really heavily nourished cattle walking around that area.
No, that's very true. Yeah.
Or horse. That's another thing we noticed, speaking of horses, was the only thing that was really devoid of getting shot throughout this. It's probably because the CGI wasn't there back then and you couldn't really simulate a horse getting killed.
No.
But horses dodge bullets like fucking Neo from the Matrix.
That's right, and it's not an Italian flick.
No, it wasn't. No, Peckinpah. No, he wasn't. He was a good, hard Irish drunker, I
If it
imagine.
was an Italian flick, they'd probably shoot the horse.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they do that in a lot of Italian
Italians have a
Western?
bad reputation.
Or is that
for
just
doing
what? Yeah, you're Italian, so I guess you would.
Right. No, a lot
No,
of
I got an appointment actually to shoot.
I gotta
a
go make
horse.
some glue here. I gotta go grind down a horse. No, but back in the old days, you guys can look this up if you don't believe me. But yeah,
This is why they stopped making Mr. Ed movies, because Andrew was a little trigger happy after he got with an old Peckinpah.
Right, but no, Italian movies were
The spaghetti westerns, really?
Yeah, for hurting.
Well, not in this one. These American horses, they were pretty elusive.
They were, yeah.
Men got shot, well-dressed, well-fitted
time.
men that then left Spectre clothes to be
That's
picked
right.
up and pilfered by other men.
Come to the conclusion, nobody really died of natural causes back then.
No, you never got to that stage.
No, you did. You got like old, and then you probably shot or something, or robbed, or shot in the middle of a shootout. Because a lot of people did die in the beginning.
In the beginning, right, in that
a lot of
first
old
shootout.
people. Yeah.
So yeah, if you like movies that have a lot of death and violence,
Old fashioned.
and right, a little bit of the old fashioned for everybody.
Yeah.
This was one of those movies. We definitely recommend it. I would say on a scale of out of 10, I would give it a 9 probably. I was interested pretty much the whole thing.
I would happily say 9.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a whole lot more in 1969 Sam Peckinpah really could have drilled down on to make this movie a lot more gritty. It was really gritty.
Well, I think
even for 2022, 2023, it was a
Absolutely.
gritty ass movie.
You know what I like about it? It's real. It's raw because it's not done with CGI or it's not like really with fake stuff. They actually use like
No
real
fake tits.
props.
Yeah.
No, that's another thing. Notice. No,
They were
there's
all
no fake
real
tits.
knockers.
Real knockers.
In those lady of the night or day whorehouses.
Right. I like
Right.
the lady of the night. That's a classic.
It's a very classy sort of a right.
Gentleman's way of saying
A gentleman's
we're
club.
whores.
Right, they didn't call them gentlemen's clubs back then. I guess these guys weren't really gentlemen. If they would have pulled a revolver, you'd have probably called them whatever they wanted. Though.
Right, I'm pretty sure they just call them whorehouses.
Right. Everybody probably had a really itchy
Den of
raw
iniquity.
taint with all that sweating. That's kind of what I got.
A lot of chafing going on with that denim, wet denim in the desert. You're riding a horse, chafing. You're running into the desert. You got sand in your gooch. It wasn't a pleasant time. I guess that's why everybody was so ornery back then. They've always got sand in
They were
their
so
gooch.
ordinary or ornery?
Ornery.
Oh,
That's what I mean.
yeah.
Not ordinary.
I would imagine it was all pretty ordinary too, though. Right? A couple of dead bodies around you. What are you going to do about it?
Right. Oh, yeah. Those kids were laughing at the beginning. There's like a big shooting. Ha 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 ha. You know.
It was an excellent movie. I definitely recommend it. I would imagine he does as well. We're going to be back next week. What are we going to review next week? Are we going to do Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth? Is that number 2? That's
That
number
is.
2. We're going to be back with another episode of Testosterone Fuel. I'm Cody.
I'm Anthony.
We're Big Beaver Comics. You guys should check out BigBeaverComics.com. Go over to Instagram, Facebook. Check us out there. Subscribe to this video. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought of the Wild Bunch. And go fuck yourself.